This is the car I'm going to use for my travels around Australia. It's fairly standard. It's an ex-Telstra car. It comes standardly with aluminium canopy as well as a GVM upgrade, what is great for the amount of gear I want to carry, as well as an increase in suspension. Now what I've fitted is an additional roof rack just to carry my some of my kayak gear, as well as a kayak on top. And obviously recovery points and a winch for the road less traveled. Now the engine is a 4.2 turbo diesel. The turbo has been replaced by an aftermarket turbo. The other thing you will find here is a dual battery system and obviously a shower system. So for the dual battery system I'm using REDARC's DC charger. This one makes sure that both batteries are always full. In addition I have a heat exchanger for the shower system, as well as a thermostat which I can use to set the temperature of the shower. So in my car I have 4 batteries. I have 2 batteries in the front which are managed by a DC charger, and I have 2 AGM batteries, one for the fridge and other gadgets, as well as one for the kayak. Now the DC charger makes sure that both front batteries are always completely full. In addition, you can also easily hook up a permanent solar panel, and then the DC charger will select the solar energy over the alternator, which will save you on energy and will also make sure that your batteries are just always full. Now for the AGM batteries I'm using REDARC solar blankets, which works really easy. If you have seen my previous blog, you saw how compact and how easy to use it is. I just use a normal solar charge controller with Anderson plugs to hook it up to any of my AGM batteries, or if needed to any of my front batteries, and just charge them fully up. During driving I use REDARC's gauge to actually monitor the status of my batteries. This gauge allows me to see of both batteries the voltage, as well as how much amp there is going into the second battery. Now my camping setup depends a lot on how long I'm staying somewhere, as well as where I am. If I'm staying only one night, I might choose for just a swag under an awning. But if I'm staying a little bit longer, then I choose for the instant up tent, as well as a table to work from. Now normally when I'm working I try to have a really nice view, but unfortunately because I'm staying today in a more caravan park style in town, I'm blessed with this view on the road. So here you see kind of my working space. It depends a little bit what I'm doing, but today I'm working on some photos and some video material, so I have my gear here. For most of my gear I use special space boxes. They're really good. They protect your fan items really well, which is important with football driving obviously, because everything is vibrating loose. For cooking I just use the simple lunchbox style cooker. Works for me. It's very simple, but like I said, sometimes you don't have to make it too complex. For water I just use the normal 10-liter water tanks. They're really easy to deal with, and when they're empty you can use them for grey water as well. This side of the canopy houses all my cooking and grocery stuff. I use simple plastic tops and plastic drawers to store everything. These are mounted in a wooden frame, as well as a fridge and an additional battery with electrical components, which I will show you in a minute. I decided on plastic drawers and plastic tops purely because of a money reason. Obviously going on a big lab costs you a lot of money, and you can spend your money only once. So I decided to go for a very simple but functional way of storing everything. So as I mentioned, there is a fridge. I have an external thermometer to read the temperature. In addition, standard in every Telstra canopy is a utility box like this one, with an Anderson plug, as well as some DIN connectors and a fuse block. Now under here we find a 125 amp AGM battery, which at the moment is kind of hidden under the foam. The other thing is a fuse box, which provides me with all kinds of different connectors for my gadgets. So we have the normal cigarette plug, as well as several Deutsch plugs for some other things, as well as an Anderson plug to connect directly to the solar controller. And then the solar controller is at the moment connected to the solar blanket to fill this battery up. This is the other side of the canopy. It looks quite busy. That's because there's a lot of gear in there. So what I normally do is I use bags for clothing items and bedding. As I mentioned before, I use space cases for valuable gear. And then I use milk crates for all my other gear. Because I do a lot of different types of outdoor adventures, I have a lot of gear. So honestly, I have a lot of fishing gear, as well as gear for my kayak, as well as for the mountain bike. You can imagine with a mountain bike you need several spare parts, as well as maintenance items of that as well, tools for the car, and then I also have my lightweight gear. So when I'm doing an overnight hike or an overnight paddle or ride, I don't bring my big tent. I will bring a special hiking swag, as well as special hiking gear, which is all more compact and light than your standard gear. Other than that, I have an esky here as well, which I use as a fridge by freezing bottles in the freezer and then put them in the esky. It keeps it nicely at 4 degrees. And then we have 2 buckets, one bucket for the laundry and the other bucket for number 2s. So obviously you don't want to do that in the same bucket. On the back of the canopy we have the dual wheel carrier, as well as a holder where the mountain bike, the shovel and the axe are fitting in. Now in regards to communication devices for my trip, I use 4 different devices. First of all, obviously the old-fashioned UHF, which is perfect to communicate between cars on short distances. Secondly, obviously the old-fashioned mobile phone, which in my case is connected to an aerial that extends my range, and that one is then connected to a small modem that emits a Wi-Fi signal, so I can easily use the internet from my laptop and other devices. The 2 other devices I'm using is obviously a satellite phone. Just as with the mobile phone, you can use it easily to call with friends and family, but as well when you're broken down. As you're using satellites, you will always have reception, so that's perfect for in the outback. Now in cases for emergency, you don't want to just rely on a satellite phone. I personally prefer to have a personal locator beacon. You might know them as well as e-perps. They're called e-perps for on the boats, but when you're using on the land, it's a PLB. They're perfect for full drive touring, as well for hiking, paddling and mountain biking, basically for anything you're doing in a remote area. The way it works is really easy. There is a button, internal button which you can click that will right away emit a signal to special emergency satellites that will then contact the rescue and search operations. They're quite cheap, and I definitely recommend you to carry one, considering how cheap it is, and it can actually save your life much better than devices like a satellite phone. Now this was a short overview of how I set up my rig. I hope I showed you that you don't have to have a really big budget to actually do a trip around Australia. You can have a very simple setup and still actually do a lot. I hope to see you on the road less traveled. It's now time for ice cream.